There's one bit of gear that is a critical link in making your four-wheel drive as good on the road as it is off the road. The Humble steering dampener plays a vital role in making your four-wheel drive safe and easy to drive, and this becomes even more apparent if you fitted a bit of a lift and perhaps a larger set of tyres.
But like any aftermarket gear, not all steering dampeners are created equal, and Tough Dog's iconic return to centre dampener is proof of that.
We recently received a question from one of our Facebook fans in relation to the return to centre steering dampener. Mark Backer from the Central Coast writes, "Guys, can someone please explain to me properly exactly how and why a return to centre steering dampener works, and how do you know if you've got it set up correctly?" Great question, mate. Well, today we're going to show you what makes the return to centre dampener so different and so effective. We'll also show you exactly how to set it up and how to test it to make sure that you've got it set up right the first time.
Before we can get into the specific details of the return to centre damper, we need to know exactly what a steering damper is and what makes it any different to a normal shock absorber. The truth is simple. Every steering damper is simply a shock absorber, but with one very important difference, and that is the internal valving. A traditional shock absorber will run different rebound and compression stroke valving, which is necessary to control the vehicle's pitching and inertia when cornering or braking, and basically keep the vehicle as level as possible. Obviously, this wouldn't work on a steering damper, otherwise you'd find little resistance turning in one direction, and it would be near impossible to turn in the opposite direction. A steering damper has 50-50 valving, meaning that its compression and rebound rate is the same, and we can turn left or right with the same effort.
Okay, now that we know what a steering dampener is, let's take a closer look at the return to centre dampener and see what makes it so different and how it works.
The obvious addition to the return to centre damper is the small coil spring that's fitted to the body of the damper. The coil spring is designed with different rates to suit either manual or power steering, so that the effort required to stretch or compress the spring is minimal. As you may have guessed, the spring helps to do exactly what the name suggests, and that is return the steering dampener and therefore the steering back to centre. As you turn right, the coil is stretched out, and when you let go of the steering wheel, the coil returns to its neutral position and straightens the steering. When you turn left, the coil is compressed, and once again, when the steering wheel is released, it rebounds and returns the steering to the neutral or straight ahead position.
Well, the second part of Mark's question is how do you know you've got the thing set up right? Well, it just so happens that Dave's fitting one to his 76 series today, and I reckon he might need a bit of a hand. Mate, what are you doing?
I just fitting a return to centre steering dampener, Rick. Returns my steering wheel to the centre.
Mate, that is not how it works. Come on, I'll show you how to do it properly.
The first step is to straighten the steering wheel so that the wheels are pointing dead ahead. Then, before you even lift the spanner, grab a measuring tape and take a measurement of the distance between the centre of mounting point to the centre of mounting point and write this down. Before you remove the existing damper, grab a texter and make a mark where the stone shield meets the body of the damper. This will allow us to double check our measurement accurately on the bench. Once you have the old damper out and on the bench, line up that mark you made with the texter and double check that your measurements match the ones you took on the car. Once you have unpacked your return to centre damper, extend it to match the measurements you took earlier, taking care to measure from centre of mounting point to centre of mounting point. Now it's time to fit the retaining collar for the coil. Grab your texter and mark where the tail of the coil spring meets the damper body. Then, grab your measuring tape and carefully mark another line 27mm further along the damper body. Now, fully extend your damper to make room to fit the collar. Grab the bottom half of your collar and carefully line up the base of the collar with the second extra texter mark you made. You'll notice that the collar is slightly smaller than the damper body. Don't worry, it's meant to be like that. Once you're sure you've lined it up correctly, grab a dead blow hammer and give the collar a solid hit to send it home. Now, grab the second half of the collar and carefully line it up. It's a good idea to grab the Allen head bolts and screw them in to ensure that everything is correctly lined up. Again, once you're sure everything's lined up correctly, grab the hammer and give the second half a solid hit. This could be done at a vise if you prefer, but be careful not to overdo it. Now it's time to tighten up the collar. A handy tip here is to take your time and ensure that you're doing the bolts up evenly. Keep an eye on the gaps on each side of the two halves of the collar and try to keep them even. If you've done this step right, It'll be a simple job to wind the coil spring onto the collar. Take care to make sure that it's wound all the way home. Once your return to centre damper is built, double check your measurements once again, and then it's a simple job to fit the dampener to the car, and then it's time for the test drive.
So how'd that feel, mate?
Mate, direct, really nice. I reckon on a long drive that'd make a world of difference.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot less fatiguing. Well, there you have it, folks. That's everything you need to know about the return to centre steering dampener, and of course, always for more information, toughdog.com.au.